Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of this replay. This shoutcast and commentary is sponsored by lucomputers.com. Go ahead and check out their website for StarCraft 2 tested computers. Vikings now moving around. The siege tank was taken down, and now not even going after that SCV, but however, now we do have a fair number of Marauders just simply destroying this base over here. No concussive shells though, so down goes this Marauder, but these Banshees are now coming in and will be able to finish off the rest of this army here. Missile turrets getting taken down, SCV is trying to hide, but these Banshees should be able to finish off this whole entire attack force. Not sure why this Banshee's asleep, not engaging there, and now one siege tank very low on hit punch. We'll go ahead and re-siege. Vikings now going into that ground mode. So Viking in ground mode, siege tank gonna go ahead and siege up, or not even siege up, just try to attack with that 7 range. And now also auto turrets pushing off, maybe able to get off a little bit of damage. No, STC very smart, moving away with that Viking outside the range of the auto turret before jumping into the air. One Banshee now in the air, perhaps going to try to snipe some and deal some damage as well. In comes a cloak, down goes that one Marine, and now 2 Vikings engaging against this one Banshee over here. Gonna try to get outside of that sight range of that cloak. Will he be able to get it? No, that Banshee able to escape. Back over here, another Banshee going after more SCVs, so just a lot of constant action all over the place. And now we have siege tanks and Marauders moving into the main base here of this expansion over here of STC. STC does not have any extra defenses over there, so both sides taking heavy casualties and heavy damage. One Banshee able to take down one Marine there with the help of a, as that Raven was allowing that Marine to shoot back up. Banshee now perhaps trying to protect this expansion over here. Siege tank gonna go ahead and land back over here. However, there is a Marauder. There is 5-6 SCVs over here. This Banshee should be able to finish off that Marauder. Gonna go ahead and decloak out of energy. Now taking down this Marauder. Marauder down to 15 hit points. There it goes, as we now have another Marauder army moving out. Siege tanks need to siege up. If they are not sieged, that's going to be very bad news in this fight. No concussive shells though, so those Marauders are not going to be as good as chasing down units. Over here, another Banshee continuing to, I guess, snipe down some SCVs. Should probably move over, perhaps wants to get a little bit more energy. Now moving out, gonna go ahead and take down some of these SCVs over here. We already have 13 kills, gonna go ahead and rack up those kills very easily. Marines coming back over to try to reinforce. This Banshee now getting up to 16 kills, maybe able to get up to 17 as it continues to chase down more and more SCVs. More siege tanks over here, but they're going to be forced to pull back and deal with this whole entire attack force here. Nothing really to block this siege tank and Marauder army. As these Marauders now moving in, now going after some of those supply depots, going to supply lock his opponent. SCVs coming off the mineral line, and those SCVs just falling to the wayside. More Marauders coming in, siege tanks coming in as well. Siege tanks have that longer range. Marauders not stimmed, but able to just really focus down those siege tanks and do a lot of damage. Now this one supply depot will get burned down. Down it goes. STC sitting on 81/81 food. Vikings in the air over here, both sides taking heavy casualties. Production, one concussive shells, Marines, Vikings, both sides just playing a very interesting game here, as I have not seen so many Banshees, Vikings, Marauders in a Terran mirror match. Banshees now once again engaging, more Marauders here. And how is this all going to really play itself out? Production-wise, 1 Marauder, 1 Banshee versus 3 Marauders and 1 Viking. We are finally getting the concussive shells for the STC. And over here, Marauders now going after this orbital command. SCV is able to hide by the vents. Not quite sure why the Marauders are not trying to engage, as these SCVs cannot be loaded up into an orbital command, only into a planetary fortress or a command center. Planetary fortress obviously cannot lift off, however. Over here, OGS EnSnare now going into a mass Marauder army. You can see his production, and will be able to train up more and more units very easily. Also training up some Marines. Vikings going into ground mode and gonna get destroyed by Marauders. Marauders such a good counter towards Vikings when they're in that ground mode. But in come these Marauders here, and now with that concussive shell, things are looking very poor for that one Marauder, still caught in that concussive shell force. Down it goes. Now that Marauder has friends, and the rest of that army gets taken down again. Over here we have the command center going to go ahead and try to land over here, perhaps use some orbital mules and try to get some additional mining as these Marauders and Marines continue to push out. Down one Marauder. Marauder now in a one-on-one fist fight there, but this Marauder probably having more hit points, winning out on this engagement. Marauders not doing an attack move, and now getting it out of position. Some of these Marauders unable to engage And now ODS and SnS also doing some damage with these siege tanks. So STC, with a smaller army but in better positioning, able to hold off that attack. More Vikings and Marauders and Marines are going to be joining this fight. So will these siege tanks siege up and try to protect this natural expansion as SCVs now mining over here? So siege tanks sitting here and here. Marines and Marauders deciding to circumvent that whole entire army over here, and no medevacs. These 4 Marauders are going to get destroyed by this army over here. 1 Marauder casualty for ODS and SnS compared to the 4 Marauders sitting over there, and now STC in a little bit of trouble. The siege tank needs to move up and try to take down this position over here, sieging up, and that is a mistake. And Marauders able to focus down that siege tank very easily before it's even able to get off one splash attack. ODS and SnS now seen on a 2600 mineral army versus 500, and I believe that's going to be GG. ODS and SnS playing the better macro game, being able to constantly produce units, even though and able to save a lot of his units as well, even though both sides didn't really get that many medevacs. The medevacs would have really healed up those Marauders and strengthened the Marauder play. STC finally get one medevac, but that medevac may be too little too late. More meals now being moved over, and this game is not over yet. Wow, as these Vikings, Marines, Marauders continue to move out, the army and the unit combination of EnSnare with 2 siege tanks, 6 Vikings, 16 Marauders, and 2 medevacs versus the 3 siege tank, 1 Banshee, and 7 Marauder army of the STC. Over here now more fighting in the middle of the field. There is we did see STC now once again winning that really small engagement, but now Vikings gonna take down that one Banshee over there, and now Marauders over here preparing themselves for what may be some more Viking harassment. Now siege tanks and Marauders going to go ahead and push over here, though. These siege tanks just outside of sight range, so really well done by ODS and SnS, knowing the siege tank range on this high ground, not trying to fight back. One Marauder gonna be destroyed here as they are being moved on up. Down goes another Marauder there. There are some siege tanks, but why STC didn't try to siege them and try to defend all of these production buildings is beyond me. One siege tank here, Marauders sitting there as these units continue to move up. Siege tanks can go ahead and try to siege on this low ground. No, not going to siege on this low ground, and now just get destroyed by this very large Marauder army. Another scanner sweep revealing what STC is fearful of. A medevac now healing up those Marauders. Marauders trying to engage. No, there are some concussive shells, but both sides with Stim able to move back and forth. And OTC says GG. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed this 1v1 replay between OGS and the STC. Just a really strong play by OGS and SnS. And SnS doing a great job dealing with the harassment of STC. STC opened up with a really strong Banshee harassment in 3 different locations, allowing those Banshees to be repaired and then regenerate that energy and then going back into that fight. EnSnare, however, not losing his focus, able to continue to macro up and get a lot of SCVs. You can take a look at his harvester count, sitting at 64, even though I'm sure he lost many SCVs throughout this whole entire match. Also, OGS and SnS was finally available to just mass up a large enough army to put pressure on the STC. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening once again.